Your reaction yesterday to these claims about this Panorama show and the use of Carter Ruck lawyers against former Labour Party staff speaking anonymously to the BBC was to say, look, I've got parliamentary privilege. MPs are allowed to speak on the floor of the House and say things which they cannot face any legal action. I'm willing to speak out if you get in touch. How many did get in touch?
Well, I've had some emails over the weekend. I will be taking advice about the use of parliamentary privilege in those cases and making a judgment about whether the information I have is appropriate to be shared on the floor of the House of Commons in the way that I suggested it could be. But, you know, I haven't seen the Panorama documentary that's going to be aired this week. The Labour Party leadership haven't seen the documentary this week. But what I do have is experience of the last 4 years of watching with absolute horror our party's failure to tackle anti-Semitism. And what I found completely sickening this weekend was the revelation that rather than responding to the concerns of the professionals, the staff that have been involved in trying to tackle anti-Semitism cases, instead of listening to them, listening to their concerns, trying to put this right, the Labour Party has used, as you said, very expensive, heavy-handed media lawyers to try and threaten whistleblowers into silence. Not only is, I think, this a wholly inappropriate response to concerns about anti-Semitism, it is also rank hypocrisy. The Labour Party opposes non-disclosure agreements for whistleblowers. We understand the importance of whistleblowing where there is wrongdoing and people are bravely speaking out in the public interest to expose wrongdoing. They should be supported and applauded, not threatened. And I just think this is the sort of behaviour you'd expect from the likes of Sir Philip Green, not the likes of Jeremy Corbyn. But then again, perhaps I'm wrong about that too.
Well, the Labour Party have said, as you said, like you, they've not actually seen the Panorama, although they say it's a very biased report, but they've actually not seen it. They've obviously had some allegations put to them so they can respond. But they say, look, these aren't whistleblowers. These are disgruntled ex-employees. They're ex-employees who didn't like Jeremy Corbyn being elected. This is a political battle. It's nothing to do with people blowing the whistle on serious problems with anti-Semitism. What would you say to that?
I've just seen too many cases of the Labour Party failing to adopt and implement the zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism that Jeremy Corbyn himself has promised time and time again. I mean, I do think that there are questions to be asked anyway, frankly, of the Labour Party's leadership and senior management when you look at the turnover of Labour Party staff, especially the compliance unit, which is responsible for investigating disciplinary issues, including anti-Semitism. I don't think there is a single person left in that entire department still working there who was working there at the time that Jeremy Corbyn first became Labour leader. It seems to me that whether it's clearing out Labour Party staff who are concerned about our failure to tackle anti-Semitism, the Labour Party is tougher on those people who express concerns about the way in which we've handled anti-Semitism rather than the anti-Semites and their apologists themselves. And I just really think enough is enough. And, you know, if there was anything, if I needed any further convincing about the leadership's total inability to tackle anti-Semitism, it would have been the way in which they are responding to a documentary that hasn't even been aired yet, through accusations of bias, accusing the BBC of acting in bad faith, launching through its alt-left social media outlets character assassinations on the journalists behind the documentary, playing the man, not the ball. I think actually any serious party and any serious leadership that wanted to tackle anti-Semitism would be wanting to see the allegations first, make a judgment, and if there's a case to be answered, then doing absolutely everything they can to deal with this problem. But, you know, we didn't need a BBC journalist to come along and tell us we had a problem with anti-Semitism. We've seen it for the last 4 years. And we will never solve it with Jeremy Corbyn as leader.
That's the issue. There seem to be an awful lot of Corbynistas who, you know, the likes of John McDonnell, Diane Abbott, and others who seem to think that actually this is now part of that he is part of the problem. We're constantly told, look, Jeremy Corbyn's had nothing to do with any of these decisions, whether it's down to Chris Williamson or others. And there's an NEC meeting meeting tomorrow, where they're going to decide whether or not there should be a referral of Chris Williamson to a disciplinary committee, of course, another Corbynista MP. But how much of this do you think does come down to Jeremy Corbyn, either inspiring the people who are acting and saying and tweeting things that are anti-Semitic? How much of it him or his staff, Chief of Staff Carrie Murphy, Director of Communications Seamus Mill, are being used to cover this up, are actually enabling it to continue happening, are protecting the people who do actually do and say things that are regarded by many other in the party as anti-Semitic? How much is the role of the leader and his closest aides, do you think? How big is that role?
I think where Jeremy Corbyn is completely culpable is with the failure to address the problem itself on two levels, really. One is about how we tackle individual cases from a disciplinary point of view, but the second is about political leadership and how you educate out prejudice from the Labour Party through helping people to understand what anti-Semitism is and how it should be tackled. And I'm afraid the regular defence of Jeremy doesn't get involved in disciplinary cases, Jeremy isn't on any of these committees, it's the National Executive Committee or the National Constitutional Committee, they're the ones that need to tackle this. That doesn't wash when Jeremy Corbyn, as leader, has more control over the organs of the Labour Party, those bodies, than any other leader in Labour's history. People elected to the National Executive Committee and the National Constitutional Committee were elected explicitly on JC tickets. Remember the NEC elections? Yep. JC9, these are people who are there by virtue of having told the membership, we're Jeremy Corbyn's people, we're there to support Jeremy Corbyn. Well, the best way to support Jeremy Corbyn right now is to kick anti-Semites out of the Labour Party and draw a line under this miserable affair. But as I say, I've just given up hope that Jeremy Corbyn can do it.
Well, if you have given up hope that Jeremy Corbyn can do it, and he's part of the problem rather than part of the solution, and he's still there, why are you still a member of the Labour Party? Some of your colleagues have chosen to leave the party, to stand as independents. Some have chosen to try and form new parties. But why are you still a member of the Labour Party?
I refuse to give ground to anti-Semites and their apologists and to be driven out of a political party that I think throughout its 100-year history has done fundamental good for our country. I don't think that leaving the Labour Party, the country's official opposition party to that kind of conspiracy theorist, hard left politics, is the right thing to do. Of course, the best course of action would be for Jeremy Corbyn to get a grip. If he can't, look, it doesn't, to be honest, Julia, lots of people who support Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are, any time that I criticise things, even where there are legitimate criticisms, and they're not interested. They know that I am never going to be president of the Jeremy Corbyn fan club. What I would say to decent-minded colleagues on the left of the party, many of whom voted for Jeremy Corbyn twice, is they have a responsibility resting on their shoulders, actually, about how they think they can rescue the Labour Party from this quagmire. And sometimes that does involve having uncomfortable conversations with your friends and telling them that things need to change or they need to go. And I really think that colleagues on the left of the party really need to think through their role now. We've already seen this happening on some of Jeremy Corbyn's closest allies have been in to see him in recent weeks to tell him that things can't go on like this. I would just hope that Jeremy Corbyn now reflects and listens to those voices of his supporters, even if he won't listen to people like me.